welcome to another episode of Side Draft Media. My name is Don. With me, my co-host Ryan. We are here bringing you another special guest from inside the garages at NASCAR Racing. We are so excited to get after this, man. But of course, we wanted to shout out our wonderful sponsor, Mr. Don Tucker Custom Displays. He creates these awesome 3D printed displays for your 124 diecasts. He can make them in any team, any colors you want, throw you some sponsors on there. He can do it. What we'll do is we'll leave a little link down there in the description for you guys. Check him out. He's on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Make sure you get you one. Also, we got to shout out Adrenaline Rush Collectibles on Facebook. Their Facebook group sells everything from diecast to metal to shirts to hats. You name it, they're selling it. Get your booties on there. Check it out. We'll leave their link down there for you guys as well. Ryan, hey man, like I was saying, we got ourselves another guest on our show. It's really exciting for us. What do you got for me, bud?
Hey, thanks, Don, and hello, everybody. Absolute pleasure to be sitting here doing this yet again with you, and just reaching out within the NASCAR community to tell more great stories. Because the men and women that work in NASCAR, everybody has a different story, and they all deserve to be told. And today's no different. And joining us is a crew member from within the NASCAR community who has an awesome story to tell. He's working in both the Xfinity Series and the Cup side of things, on the 00 of Cole Custer in the Xfinity Series and on the 14 of Chase Briscoe in the Cup Series. Joining us tonight is Shayne Pipala. Shayne,
Hey
how
guys,
you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, thanks for being here. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your night to join us on an episode of the Side Draft Media Show. You're fresh off a trip to Victory Lane, so you got extra reasons to be smiling and not sitting here. So again, thank you so much for the time taken to be with us. Shayne, we want to hear it all. So I am with the understanding that not only are you servicing the vehicles on Saturdays and Sundays in the pit box, but you're putting some hard work inside the shop as well. So I really want to dive into both sides of that. And let's start though in the beginning. How did you get your start in NASCAR?
Well, growing up, I watched it on TV with my dad, and he was super into it. He was a huge Earnhardt fan. He actually ended up taking me to Charlotte, which was my first race in 1997. We went to the fall race in Charlotte, and he had gone the year or two prior to that, and he brought me back all the little diecast haulers and cars, and I was mesmerized by everything. I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it, and I kept asking him, like, Dad, I want to go to race. Dad, I want to go to race. And at the time, when I grew up in Chicago, there wasn't anything there yet. The Chicagoland Speedway wouldn't be built in 2001. So he's like, all right, well, we're going to go to Charlotte, and because that's the mecca of all NASCAR, right? It's the home base. So
Right.
he took me there, and I fell absolutely in love with it. It just, the sight, the sounds, just the adrenaline from hearing the cars and all the people. And it was just a fantastic experience. And I just absolutely fell in love with it from that day forward. And I'd never missed a race. We watched every Sunday together, and it just kept growing. We got closer together, and it was an awesome experience.
That is awesome. I love it.
That's great. And as a father of three, that you honed in on something there that is near and dear to me as well. Like you get that, how sports can create that bonding situation,
Yes.
between children and parents, and it's. I too got into NASCAR racing because of my dad, and the long-standing joke. I've said it on air multiple times, and guess what? I'm going to say it again. I've been a racing fan since I was in diapers, and I'll be one when I'm in diapers again, because it's just I fell in love with it at such a young age with my dad, and taking me to a race, and like you said, visiting those haulers, the souvenir haulers, and getting those little diecast cars that is still hobby of mine today. Admittingly,
The struggle is real, guys.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
the struggle is so real with them. It's an expensive hobby too, but
It's a very expensive hobby.
I love it, and well, racing's an expensive hobby in general.
Yes,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
But it's just I totally can relate with that, that side of the story. So got hook, line, and sinker at Charlotte Motor Speedway for Shayne, but tell us the diving into that automotive side, because
Right.
certainly you don't end up in the NASCAR Cup Series sitting on your couch watching it every weekend. Otherwise, I'd been there. so, so,
For
so
sure.
we gotta figure this out. How do you go from the couch to the Cup Series?
Well, my dad, again, always a gearhead. He owned his own body shop and he's worked on cars since he was like 14 years old. And he's still currently working in body shop today, working on cars, fixing cars. So he owned his own in Chicago. And I, of course, grew up going to that shop. And he started teaching me how to work on cars when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And again, being around cars, being around all that, the gas smell, the oil, the Bondo dust, like watching him transform wrecked cars into these beautiful showpieces again and working on hot rods and just he had boats, worked on different cars and it was just everything he always did himself. And it was just so cool to see him transform things with his hands and being able to take nothing into something that only he could see as a vision. And I just picked up on that passion. And as started going through high school and getting a little bit older, I wasn't so much into the mechanic side as I was into welding. And when I first got to see people weld and what they can make out of metal, and it blew me away. It just seemed like the possibilities were endless. And like
Welding is a beautiful art.
it
Absolutely.
is. And there are some incredible welders out there that I don't even come close to, but
Right.
it is an art. And then learning more about the sport, how they built the bodies, how they shaped the metal, and welding the roll cages together. And just like, wow, I think I could actually do this as a living, and that could be my avenue in because I'm not an athlete, never was an athlete. I have some athletic ability, but nothing like I'm not a football player. I grew up playing ice hockey and hockey, roller hockey, all that. But I'm not your traditional collegiate athlete. I
Right.
came from the more blue collar, work your way up, and then let's find a way to also pit on the side, but also have a lot of skill sets I can bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Now, I have an automotive background myself, and more not in the body shop side of things, but in the automotive service world. But I just always admired, the skill that it takes and the training and the precision, especially when it comes to welding, in an automotive setting, or even just in general, because of how technical it is and how small the margin for error is in welding. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, the margin of error that you have to work
Yeah.
with,
And then you
and
take in
how
you take in the part of welding where the metal actually moves and reshapes. So you got to take in those measurements too.
For
So it's
sure.
yeah.
it's not just a weld and done. You got to make sure it stays put.
That's right.
Aside from welding experience, which we know you have, and we're going to talk about how that plays into what you do
Yeah.
within the Cup Series in a moment. But was there any other mechanical skill sets that you had done, like in whether it was in the body shop or on the side, prior to this?
Like I said, just working with my dad in the shop when I was a teenager and learning that I really don't like body work. It's messy, it's dirty. It's just like I didn't have the patience for it. It wasn't my thing. And then, like I said, I ended up finding the welding deal. So when I actually came to look for a job in NASCAR, I knew what I wanted to do since I was about 6, 7 years old from watching on TV. I'm like, it's it. I'm gonna work in racing. I know I am. I'm not gonna let anybody tell me no.
Speak it into
This is
existence, my friend.
that's it.
Yeah.
And from day one, I was like, I want to be a tire changer and I want to work in NASCAR. And it was like, okay, sure, you're a little kid, you want to be a firefighter, you want to be a race car driver. But as I got older and went towards high school, and it was kind of like, hey, what do you want to do with your life? I want to work in racing. This is it. And my mom and dad gave me every opportunity to help me either find welding classes. I was able to go to vocational school in high school, learn how to weld there, work with my dad on special projects and everything like that. And when I went to my first race shop, They flew me down here a month before I graduated high school, and my dad and I went every shop. And the first shop I had went to was Braun Racing at the time, and they were a Busch team. And someone had just quit that day, and they're like, "Well, what do you know how to do?" Well, I said, "I know how to weld." And they're like, "Okay, prove it. Here's a bunch of scrap metal. Sit in this table and weld us something together." Welded a few roll bars together and TIG welded a couple bars, and they're like, "Okay, well, when can you start?" I said, "Well, I need to go back and graduate first, and I can come back in about a month." So a week after I graduated high school, I was 18 years old and moved here by myself across country from Chicago to work at Braun Racing in the Busch Series at the time.
Oh, absolutely incredible, man.
What?
I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
open on the spot
Yes.
audition
Yeah.
for becoming a welder at a race team. Just popping in the door, like talk about nailing the timing, hitting that on
Yeah.
the head. Whoa. It's like,
I
you know, now
fully believe I was meant to do this in my life. Like God
I,
had a plan for me, and that was it.
if there's
Absolutely.
ever a thing where it's meant to be, that is it, my brother.
Yeah.
You know that.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, so Braun Racing, you're there. You obviously you came back, right?
Yep.
They locked you down and they brought
Locked
you
me
back a month
down.
later.
My parents drove me down, dropped me off, spent the weekend, got my apartment. They said, "All right, call us if something goes wrong. We'll see you later." And
Wow.
18 years old by myself and going to
That
work
Incredible.
just,
in a
hey
professional
man,
team
jump into
sport.
the fire, bro.
That's
That's
right.
amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Head first.
Now,
So, like, of course, I had a lot to learn, and there was the guys there were amazing. They took me under their wing. They showed me what to do, and that's funny. Before my dad left, he talked to a few of them. He said, "If he's acting like an asshole, just smack him upside the head." And so set him straight. But it worked
spoken
out
like a
really
true
well.
dad. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right?
Now, so I heard a story that you had bought your own NASCAR hard card
Right.
to pit
So
cars for
yeah. So
free, mind you.
yeah. So when I got there, I knew I wanted to be a tire changer. And so after working for a while, I was like, okay, I'm kind of established in the shop now. I'm working a couple months down the road. I'm like, okay, I want to be a tire changer. I know some of you guys have done it and they've retired since. And my boss at the time, he had pitted for Michael Waltrip in like 2001, 2002. So he used to do it and he was really good. And I was like, hey, I want to do this. What do I have to do? And he's like, well, you need to start getting a gun, hitting nuts, figuring out tempo, and see if you even can do it. Well, we went out back after work one day and he helped me set it up. And he's all right, this is what you do. And he showed me a few patterns when he hit the nuts. I was like, okay. And I started swinging and it was really bad at first, but after
Of
some
course.
practice and kind of got the rhythm down. I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? He's like, well, I know some guys who run a pit school on the side where they train guys to go work for ARCA teams or Hooters Pro Cup at the time, late model stuff. So he's like, go see this guy, and then he can help you get deals and start going to the track to get experience. And I was like, okay. So I started doing that. And then as it got going, you're working for all the smallest teams out there. They don't have a lot of money. They're not giant cup teams. So they're barely making to the track. And they're like, well, if you want to come help us, it's going to be for free. I'm like, okay, sure. Whatever it takes to get experience. And then as I just
Mhm.
worked my way up through the ladder, I was like, okay, you have to buy your license now because you're in NASCAR. So to pit a truck or an Xfinity car, you need a NASCAR license. Okay, what's it cost? I'll make it up by pitting races. And then I did that a few times. A couple of times I went to the tractor, like, hey, we can't pay you this weekend. We just don't have it in the budget. I'm like, I don't care. I'll pit for free. I just want to get the experience. So please let me do it. I'm already here in Charlotte. I'll drive over. I don't care, whatever it takes. They're like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna work for free. We'll take it.
Free labor,
Yeah.
right?
And then as I
Wow.
started moving up to get cup opportunities with smaller teams, I actually Joe Nemechek was the person who gave me an opportunity to work for him and come pit. But I was like, okay, you have to buy your own license and hard card. And because I was spending more money buying the garage passes every week, the hard card just made more sense
Right.
to actually buy at the start of the year, pit, ARCA, truck, Xfinity, and Cup in Daytona, and it was paid for over the first week. So I was like, okay, good business sense. But I bought my own license for 3 or 4 years, bought my own hard card in 2011, and then try to do every single race I could, drive anywhere I could, and just pick up deals. I remember one time we drove to Michigan, pitted the Xfinity race, drove from Michigan to New Jersey, pitted the ARCA race, drove home. I got home about 5:30, had to be at work at 6:30, and went right to work and
Wow.
went
You
full
want to
day.
talk about, listen, to everyone watching and listening, you want to talk about betting on yourself? This man
Yeah.
right here. My goodness, man. That is
Yeah.
incredible.
That's, that's the drive and determination it takes to, you talk about, you mentioned speaking it into existence. Well, my man, you actually worked it into existence,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
that stuff just doesn't happen by accident. You put the work in.
Yeah, you earned it, my friend.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so Beard Motorsports, what was after Beard? You talked about Front Row Joe. You were pitting for him for a little bit. Um, eh, how did you end up coming to the Stewart-Haas crew?
So when I worked at Braun Racing, they actually hired out the Red Bull pit crew to pit their cars on Saturday. So they would come over to our shop and they would practice in the parking lot. Well, me being nosy and wanting to go figure out how to get it, I started talking to their coach. They would come over and I would say, "Hey, this is kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get in this more and get more experience. Is there any way, like once in a while, I could jump in and practice or get a few reps with you guys?" And they were like, "Well, if we have extra, sure, no problem." And there would be days I'd sit out there for 2 hours and not get a single rep, but just watch. And then other days they'd throw me in for two or three stops. And then some days it was one. And I took just every opportunity I could. And then I'd have to go work late to make up the hours I would spend out there because that was kind of the deal they made with me. My foreman, he was like, "Okay, listen, you can do it. I don't mind it, but you got to make up your time in the shop." So there would be nights I would work till 8, 9 o'clock at night just so I could do pit practice in the day and then come back to work, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and do it all over again. But
Wow.
as I started getting reps and getting better, and they say, "Well, you might have something here," it just opened up other opportunities. And I got offered to go be a backup at Red Bull. And they're like, "Well, you need to quit your job though and come work for us. You can't do both. You're going to be committed to us being a pit crew guy, or you're going to do that. You really can't do both, being two different organizations." I was like, "All right, well, this is what I want." And the day I quit, I find out Red Bull is shutting down at the end of the year.
Oh man. So
So
2011?
yes,
Oh my
I had just
goodness.
quit my steady paying shop job to gamble on myself being a tire changer. And luckily, through the Red Bull guys, they helped me pit Nemechek's car once in a while because they did some deals with him and they let me go do that to get experience. And I made friends with some of the guys there. So they're like, "Yeah, come work in our shop, pit our car on Saturday, and then you can stay overnight and do the Red Bull backup on Sunday." So I was like, "Perfect." So I road crew Joe Nemechek stuff on Saturday, pitted the race there, and then went and hung out with the Red Bull guys on Sunday. And then when their story was coming to an end of the year, a great friend of mine now, Dwayne Moore, who was a carrier on the 83, was going to go to Stewart-Haas, and he got the coach and said, "Hey, listen, you need to take a look at this kid. I think he's got something here." And he took me with him to Stewart-Haas, and I owe everything to Dwayne for actually giving me that opportunity.
Well,
Wow.
man, so you were there at the 83 towards the end with was Brian Vickers in that
Yeah,
car, right?
Brian
Vickers at that
Vickers.
time,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Red Bull Racing. They were short-lived in NASCAR for sure.
Yeah.
I would have thought they've been around longer, being that they were Red Bull, but it just didn't work out. And I'm glad it worked out for you, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that next step. I mean, but yeah, I mean, anybody watching this, always bet on yourself. I mean, if you're ever questioning anything, there's living proof right here. It can happen. You just have to have that hard work and grit and determination. And dare we say, a little luck along the way too.
Oh, absolutely.
It all plays into it. But so Stewart-Haas Racing,
Shane created a lot of his own luck. Let's just call it what it is, man.
absolutely. So your first season at Stewart-Haas Racing then was 2012.
Correct. Yep. I actually started there November 2011. So they had just come off winning the championship with Tony. And
Oh
I had
wow.
just started in the shop. They're like, "Ooh, you're a fabricator. We need you to work the off season." That's our busiest time for fabricators, is getting everything ready for the next season because
Right.
we still used to build everything at that time. Um, so I started working the shop before Christmas, worked all through there, and then the next season I was like, okay, Stewart-Haas at the time had two cars, the 14 and 39, but they also supplied the pit crew for the 78 for Furniture Row. So I ended up being on that car for the first year with Regan Smith.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yep.
great. So, fabrication in the NASCAR world, you're building chassis,
Correct.
right?
Yep. I
And
build I build the front clips and roll cages now.
okay, because I was going to say, when these new cars came about in the Cup Series, I'm sure things changed for what your job details were or weren't at that point.
Right.
Because aren't the main chassis, they're outsourced by one supplier?
Correct. So all the cup cars are made by the company called Technique Chassis. So everyone gets the same exact chassis, front clip, rear clip, center section. It's all made in the same building, and each team's allocated 7 different chassis you can have at one time. Now, if you wreck one, you take it out of circulation and you buy a new one. We don't do anything to them but cap the holes for suspension pieces. That's about it, really.
Right.
But the Xfinity series, you can still build your own car ground up. So that's where were lucky. We still had an Xfinity team. So we were able to continue to manufacture those parts and pieces and pick up a few other teams that didn't have cup affiliation. So they would come to us and say, hey, can you build us chassis or repair our cars? So we end up getting more work and staying in business that way.
Nice.
Oh, that's and
Yeah.
see that's great. I mean, that's part of why I asked that question, because I know as the sports evolved and
Mhm.
NASCAR did what they did with the, trying to, I guess in one hand they were trying to lower the cost to NASCAR teams by doing that, and in the other sense they're putting a dollar tag on that chassis. You have to buy it from us, and then also but cutting out fabrication jobs, and that's not good either. So
Yeah, there's so many things this car's done good, and there are a lot of things that have done bad. The bad's putting a lot of guys out of work. I mean, you took away body hangers who used to hang on the bodies. You took away all the welders and fabricators. We're not building cup chassis anymore. You
Right.
took away the ingenuity. The fun part was building a better mousetrap. How can you find a tenth in a
Right.
chassis? How can you find a tenth in that body? A couple of less counts of downforce, drag. And now it's just you got
You
what
get
you
what you
got.
get.
Yeah, so it's frustrating in that way, and it's like when that cup car is good, it puts on good races, but when it's bad, it's just like,
It's pretty rough.
oh, it's rough, it's tough.
mm,
Even this, with the pit stops now has changed so much. Hitting the 5 lug nuts, it was an art. Now with
Yeah.
the
right.
single lug, younger kids are coming in and picking it up within a month or two, where it took you years of practice and just sitting out there with a box of lug nuts and just pattern after pattern after pattern and learning how to get the right tempo and accuracy and everything that goes along with that. Because at the time, you got to think about it. You had 20 chances to mess up. There's 5 lug nuts on and off 2 sides of the car, so there's 20 chances right there to screw up that pit stop. Now it's you have one chance, but the window's a lot smaller because everyone has the same equipment.
Right.
Before, tire changers, we were ranked, and the gap was huge. Your good tire changers to your bad ones, it was a second and a half difference easily.
Yep.
Now we're within hundreds, tenths. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and
And that just goes
that's
to speak to the
insane.
level of y'all's ability. I mean, y'all are absolutely gifted athletes out there at what y'all do.
Yeah.
It definitely
I-
takes the whole team now to be fast. Where before your speed came from your tire changers, because if they were accurate and hit all 5 lug nuts off without missing them, that was speed in the pit stop. Now it's a lot more in the jack man to get this car up faster and us to hit the lug nut off and keep the lug nut in our socket and not lose it. But a lot of speed comes more from the jack man now for sure.
yeah, and we've been fortunate enough to have other crew members on the podcast, and we've heard similar things, and just different perspectives as far as the ingenuity of the pit stop, and how you talked about that experience before, like just that years of drilling the lugs nuts, and now where you say a couple months to a year somebody can be doing a
Yeah,
single lug stop, and I guess the skill, unfortunately, that skill and trade has not died off in the Xfinity and the truck series yet.
correct. Yeah,
um, and it's still an art form there. And I really hope that it stays that way. I mean, we work in the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing, and a lot of these street vehicles are not single lugs, so
right.
let's try to keep the lug nuts on, and add, it also adds that loose wheel dynamic and all those other dramas that can come from it. Now, I want to ask you, because you do both,
Yeah,
and so hats off to you. But How different is your adjustment from Saturday to Sunday as far as your game plan mentally up here on what you need to do to execute on a Saturday versus a Sunday?
At first it was a little harder because the first year, it was 2022. I was doing both five lug and then the single lug. That was the first season we were doing it. The adjustment was a little, it was big because I was so used to the five lug. Now I can do that in my sleep at this point. I've been doing it for 16 years. Um, it's second nature now. But the single lug was all new. There was a lot of different techniques everyone was trying at the time. Everyone was all over the board, and now we've all kind of honed in. Everyone's kind of doing the same techniques and everything like that. But as far as like transitioning between Saturday and Sunday, I know my routine Saturday, what I need to do, kind of the tempo I need to feel. And now Sunday, I'm starting to find that same rhythm where I can just back off because we have a practice hub on our pit box. On Saturday, it has the five lug nuts. Sunday is the single lug. So I can just sit there and kind of like reacclimate myself with the gun, pull the wheel, just kind of, okay, my mindset's a little bit different today. Today is more about speed on Sunday and being clean, where Saturday is just more of a rhythm and a tempo.
And to those who aren't to those listening who aren't familiar, he's actually got. You're talking about the wheel that you've got mounted to your pit box
Yes.
that you can actually get down there and practice on.
Mhm.
I think
Yep.
that's genius because you got a lot of downtime in between pit stops. Might as well be practicing.
Absolutely, especially on Saturday because you have to work in your gun. You're hitting the five lug nuts, and the RPMs changing makes such a big difference. So you got to make sure it stays oil, nothing's
Right.
wrong with it. Or Sundays, there's so much torque in that gun, and it's so much heavier. It's just on and off really easy. But the other gun runs for so much longer. You have to make sure it's balanced right. You have the right air pressure because 5 pounds of air pressure makes a huge
Oh,
difference.
absolutely.
Wow. And what is the weight difference between the guns Saturday versus Sunday?
Off the top of my head, it's a couple pounds and it's heavy because
So you're going to
from
feel the
back when I
difference no
first
matter what.
started, yeah,
Yeah.
when I first started, the guns were so small. Like picking them now, they feel like a toy because NASCAR
Mm.
mandated in 2018 everyone had a standardized gun for
Right.
pit stops. Well, the same company, Paoli, makes the five lug nut gun and the single lug nut gun now, but it was a huge adjustment back then because it was so big and heavy, and we're like, oh my gosh. And now we went to this one's even bigger and heavier, and it's crazy to look back at our original guns, and it's like, how do we ever use these?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you still have to work with both. So that's just crazy because, y- doing anything and being good at it is a lot of practice. And with practice is obviously that word repetition, like you said.
Mhm.
But then the fact that you have to be able to flip a switch and go from one to another. Now, how often do you pit practice in a week? And how often do you pit practice for each series specifically in a week? Because that's got to play into it too.
Right. Obviously, our main focus is Sunday. That's what pays the bills. That's what we were hired to do Sunday. And the Saturday stuff is important, but it's not as important to where we've done it for so long. We could practice that once a week, once every couple weeks, and still be good enough at it. We've all done it for so long now. It's like I said, it's second nature. And the single lug is so fresh, and we still have to be on it every stop. Like this past Sunday, we had to be on it every single time that car came down pit road, not have any huge blowups, no mistakes, and just be a steady dial tone the whole race. So we'll typically practice in the off season 3 days a week, and now that it's getting towards the end of the season, we're more like 2 days a week. Like today, we just did kind of drills and kind of a couple of right sides, nothing too heavy. And then tomorrow we'll do our full on race prep for this weekend in Atlanta. 4 tire stops, fuel only stops, adjustment stops, things like that. But like the Xfinity stuff this week, we took the week off because it's a speedway style race. We just gotta make sure the wheels are tight, no penalties.
Right.
Next week we'll be back at it. Backward stops will be huge. So we'll practice that for sure.
Now,
So
how
that's
fun I'm sorry, Ryan. How fun
no,
is
go
that?
go ahead.
How fun is that when you guys actually have to switch and like say you go to your Chicago's and your Watkins Glens and stuff like that? How fun or difficult are those reverse pit stops?
They're a lot of I enjoy them. I always thought they were fun because it broke up the monotony. It was something totally different and made you
Right.
think a little bit and like, oh, okay, this feels weird because everything's opposite.
Right. Right.
It's a little harder for the five lug nut deal just because the way you have to get in position and hit the lug nuts off. With a single lug, you kind of dive in and be a little more aggressive and still get on that nut. But on Saturday, there's a lot more brake dust. So that covers the lug nuts. You can't really see them all that well, and you hit them, and the brake dust flies up into your face. And so It's a
Now
little
that's
bit
interesting.
different.
Do the Xfinity cars put off more brake dust than the next gen?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if it's the wheels on the next gen are so much bigger with the spokes and everything, and the brake dust kind of falls away. You'll get some dust,
Okay.
but not as bad as like the 5 lug nut. You'll Martinsville, something like that. You'll get down and you just get the first
Oh yeah, get
stop. Now
blasted.
it's gotten way better over the years with brake technology and things like that, but
Right.
it's still there.
We definitely see a lot less brake failures these days. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is for sure. Now you're wearing the hat. I
Yep.
see some stuff in the background as well with the logo on it. We didn't formally get to say it, so congratulations to you and the entire team on the 14 crew and Chase Briscoe. Incredible win this past weekend, and you guys locked yourself into a playoff position. You talk about Atlanta, so I'm sure the notch gets dialed up a little bit going into this weekend, especially in those pit practices. Just can you touch base real quick on how much this win meant to you personally? And I know the guys you're working with in that pit box and the driver holding that steering wheel, especially with this being the last year Stewart-Haas Racing.
I mean, that's a huge part of it. I've been here for 13 years and it's my home. I never thought I'd leave here. I thought I'd retire here, and just it's so bittersweet because it's like we won, but it's like, oh my gosh, we might have just won the last race for Stuart Haas's existence.
Right, right.
I know a lot of us put our heart and soul into this company. My carrier, he works in the shop too, and he's been there just as long as I have. And we're
Name
both
drop
looking at
for
each
us.
other.
Give us a name.
John Bernal, he's my carrier. We
Right.
Right
started off
on.
together. We came over to work on the 78, and we were together for a long time. We got split up on different cars, and we've come back together a couple years ago. And
Awesome.
it's kind of cool. We started together, and we're going to finish together. And it's just, we looked at each other the other night, and like, we didn't want to leave Victory Lane. We're like, we're not leaving this. This is too special. We've been through the ringer the last couple of years.
Right.
Stuart Haas did not come out great with the next gen car. We missed it a lot and have been clawing and fighting our way back to the top. And we've been close a couple times, and then something weird happens, and it's just like, oh, there's a late race caution. Like Nashville could have won that race, and they had 800 cautions. And then the rain at New Hampshire, we were so close there, and then we kind of fell off again. And then where Chase came from this weekend was unbelievable. He said he was going to go out and win this race and drive his ass off, and he did. And then he put the ball in our hands. He said, listen, you guys give me good stops and keep me up front. We're going to win this race today. And that was at lap 60. And it's a long race. We still have 300 laps to go. And it was like, okay, dude, you would do what we can. And everything just clicked that night. We were all in sync. It was so surreal. I'm so lucky too. My wife and son were there with me because it's
Oh,
Lois race.
love it.
That's
Love it.
special.
And they've been with me a bunch. My wife's a die-hard race fan. I got lucky. I found the unicorn in women.
Awesome.
Yeah, but they've been with me to Charlotte, Bristol, Martinsville, and I've been so close when I was on Harvick's car. Cole a couple of times was close. Like, we should have won Bristol with Harvick in 21. Elliott came out and cut our tires. And
Oh
blocked us and
man,
all
that was the Chase and Larson situation, man.
Yeah, so that was a rough
I'm
one.
glad you brought that up because from the pit crew side, we know what the drivers went through. We saw the argument, and we saw Kevin get out of his car and smash his glasses with his helmet. And what's it like as a pit crew member when you see stuff like that go down on the racetrack?
It's so frustrating because I don't think the drivers fully grasp what it affects to us. This is our livelihood. We don't make what they make, essentially.
Right.
They are in their own kind of echelon,
Right.
and they see things through a different lens than we do. And this is our livelihood. Winning those races is a bonus. That's a
Right.
house payment. That's helping buy groceries. That's people back at the shop who get these win incentives and win bonuses. You just took that away from 300 people
Yep.
just because you wanted to have a hissy fit.
Right.
It's so frustrating. Could be, you love your drivers to have passion, but I think sometimes when they get out and don't care and there's like, okay, whatever, I'm going to go back to my helicopter and fly home.
Right.
They don't realize the ripple effect that has. So
Yeah.
it's tough. But again, like, we can't do anything about it. Pit crew guys typically don't care with each other. It's like, yeah, your driver's an ass. What are you going to do? And it's like, yeah, I understand. We got one too. You just kind of go about it, and unless something stupid happens, even when there's fights and stuff like that, like, we're told, "Oh, go protect the driver," and then we end up, getting in a scuffle with other guys. But at the end of the
Right.
day, it doesn't mean a whole lot. for us.
Right.
Right.
Like,
And that's
we wanna
great,
win.
great information. That's a lot of stuff that people don't realize and don't know, that when your driver wins, y'all get that extra little help, that extra little bonus, that little bump in pay that, like you said, it helps out the stuff at home, helps out, somebody's kid could need football pads or whatever the case may be. That helps. And so when you see a win get away right through your fingertips like that, it definitely hits home with you guys.
And especially being there too is different because we're in the battle with them. We're there, and
Right.
I'm super passionate. I'm super competitive. So when stuff like that goes down, I'm mad for a while. Like it eats me inside because it's like we did our job perfect. And of course, racing, nothing's perfect. It's hard. Winning races is hard.
Absolutely.
It has to look at this past weekend. It had to go 100% right. Had the one not stayed out, I don't know if we could have beat Larson. Like it just happened to fall in our lap where he made a hell of a move to pin him and get out front and get clean air. The one doesn't stay out. It's hard to say if we win that race or not. Like
Right.
there's just so many things that have to fall your way. At the end of 500 miles, there's a 0.2 of a second difference between us and the 8. So it's like it's tough.
And you know what's really interesting about the 8 chasing you down as a pit crew member, as a guy in battle with your brothers and your driver out there getting it done. What's going through your mind when rowdy Kyle Busch is chasing down Chase Briscoe? I mean, that's got to be the most intense, final 30 laps,
So the best part was my fuel man Corey. He comes to me for all the kind of the racing stuff because I've lived, breathe, eat this stuff. Like I followed it forever. I know kind of all the quirks and stuff. And he came from football, so he's not a fully understanding of racing. But he's like, hey, he just pitted. Do you think tires will make that big a difference? I'm like, it's like 3 laps. I don't think he's gonna be able to get through the field that fast. And then we watched him go down in turn 1 past 2 or 3 guys at one time.
Without even blinking.
Past Christopher Bell, like he's standing still. He looks at me and yells at me, "You lied to me. You said that would make a difference." I'm like, I don't know where it came from. I'm telling you, it's gonna be okay.
They definitely seem to matter this weekend. They
Yeah.
that fall off, but I will say, and this is something in our post race breakdown, they did equalize quicker, even though there was fall off. But that little margin of gap there, when Busch is obviously pushing it, dude. I mean, you guys had to be sweating it too because Briscoe's pushing it, and he brushed the wall a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, like it was exciting to see. Is like, oh man, how's this going to play out? And ultimately you guys end up in victory lane, and you talk about not wanting to leave it. I saw something posted with a timestamp of 4 a.m. plus. So you guys definitely had to get pride out of there. So, it's deservingly so. I mean, I know it's been it's been a long time since Chase has won a cup race. It's been a long time, coming for Stewart-Haas in general. And then, with the Stewart-Haas itself closing, it's definitely sweet, but you got 10 more chances at it. So, barrel down, and we talk about wins. There's 2 in particular I want to hear about yet, because I want to shine a little light on this. We know that you won a championship with Cole Custer last year. So again, congratulations on that. You are a champion in this sport. Nobody's ever taking that from you. But another championship you won, that it's the Super Bowl of racing in NASCAR. You won the 2017 Daytona 500 with Kurt Busch as your driver. So can you shine a little bit of light about what it's like to be in victory lane in Daytona for the Daytona 500?
Talk about as a kid watching it, it's all I ever dreamed of, Daytona. I mean, how cool it would be just to even be there one day, and let alone the hallowed grounds of victory lane in Daytona. And that race was just crazy. I remember it like it was yesterday. Like we started out speed weeks decent. I think we ended up getting in a wreck in the 150 races. They put a new side on the car.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't, right? We get into the race and we get wrecked early on one, like stage 1 or 2, and we just were lucky enough. We were on the high side, brushed the wall, and kind of got like sandwiched up there. Nobody really like came up and like clobbered us or anything like that. And he was freaking out for a second. Kurt was. He's like, all right, wait a second. My wheel's still straight. I think we just have body damage. I was like, okay, cool. We came in and worked on that car. We probably did 8+ pit stops where we just kept massaging the fenders, kind of worked on it a little bit. And it was like, okay, we can work on X amount of time here. And then we knew the caution came out. We'll work on it a little bit more. Send them back out. Missed another huge wreck in the backstretch. And it was like, okay, we just got through it again. Let's work on it a little bit more. The last set of tires we put back on were 5 or 10 lap old tires from before, and
You
we
had some
put the lug
scuffs.
nuts, scuffs, put the lug nuts on by hand. They weren't even glued up. Tighten them back up, massage the fenders a little bit more, topped them off with fuel, which was the key at the time, and sent him back out. And as the race played on, he just kept working his way up that high line, and he was just sitting in third or fourth. And then guys started dropping out of fuel, and a couple guys made him move, and he just stayed high and ripped around Larson. And then all of a sudden, the 21 and 47 were behind us, and they couldn't get linked up, and he just kept driving away down the backstretch. I'm like, there's no way this is gonna happen, right? Like something's gonna happen. They're gonna link up and catch it because they're still got a mile plus to go before you get to the start finish line.
Right.
And he comes off turn 4, and it was just a blur. It's like we just won the Daytona 500. And I remember running across the infield to go get him, and we were all out there together, and it was just so surreal looking up at those lights and Daytona International Speedway in the grandstands. And it's like we just won this race. And
Yeah.
looking at that car, you're like, there's no way that car could even come off a trailer. Like it was junk
Wow.
and it's destroyed, beat up, bare bond, everything you could say about it. And it was the fastest car there after that.
That's incredible.
yeah.
I get chills hearing about this stuff, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's,
Now,
looking back
now,
at the pictures, I tear up like looking at them because it just like it reunites.
It
all
means
those
that much to
memories.
you guys.
Yeah.
It means that much, that the amount of passion and care that you guys put in all week long and every single weekend, it cannot get talked about enough. And just absolutely beautiful, man. To
Yeah.
walk away from Daytona in 2017, a Daytona 500 champion, is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Now, the reason I asked about this one first is because we're going to rewind to just last fall in November. You guys, in another crazy way, you win the race in Phoenix, and your driver Cole Custer's crossing the line first, and you're a NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. Shayne is a champion in this sport. Tell me, how do the two compare at all? Because I mean, we're talking about one race versus an entire season of races
Right.
with the
It's
playoffs attached to it.
they're both special in different ways. The Daytona 500, it's its own deal, right? Like people all over the world know about the Daytona 500. Like the amount of people that come to that race from all over the world is incredible, right? It's like the Indy 500. It's its own cult following race. So to win that,
Right.
you'll always be remembered to win that. But then the championship, when I was on Kevin Harvick's car, I went back to back with him in 2018 and 19, the Final Four, and we didn't win it either time. It was just like, oh, heartbreaking. Like in
Deflating,
18, we
man.
had it won, and a caution came out, and it screwed
Yep.
up the pit cycle. So
Right.
it's like, man, at least I got to be there, right? And I was like happy. And then I got put on Cole's car last year, and we were okay throughout the year. And I ended up actually coming in like mid-season because the guys that had on it, they wanted to make some changes, and they came and asked me, would you want to do it? I'm like, absolutely, yeah, let me do it. So it was like mid-season when I actually got on the car, and we were running okay through the year. And I was kind of like, okay, this is fun. I enjoy doing it because it's still the 5 lug nuts and versus the 1. And then the playoffs came, and it was like a light switch. We ran top 5, top 3 every week. We were knocking on the door for a win every single week. And I was like, man, I don't know. We might be able to do this. And then go to the Homestead race. We have a 4 or 5 second lead, and he pushes too hard and gets into the fence and cuts the right front tire down.
Damn.
Misses pit road because he couldn't turn the car down. We go down a lap, and we can never get it back. We finished like 12, 13, something like that. And that was going to be our ticket to go to the Final Four. And it was like, we were just destroyed, dejected. It's like, what do we have to do? And it was like, okay, I told everybody at dinner that night, I said, guys, listen, if we had to lose this race to win the championship, I'm okay with that. Because at the time, we were still good on points.
Right.
Right.
Then we go to Martinsville, and we had a decent race all day. And pit strategy flipped. Some guy stayed at the front. We get put in the back. Huge crash coming with the checker flag. We are
Thank you, RCR.
destroyed. We just looked
Yeah.
at the big screen, jaws on the floor, eyes as big as plates. Like, what? Our season, it's gone. The season's over.
Yep.
And then we see out of the cloud of smoke this car on fire backing up across the start finish line. We're like, who is that? And our spotter's yelling on the radio, just fire it up, gun it, go, go, go. And he crosses the line, and crossing the line put us in the championship 4 by, it was like a couple points.
It's that never quit mentality,
Never
dude.
quit mentality. Right. So then it's like, okay, focus 100% shifted to Phoenix that next week. It's like, all right, we're in it. We can win it. At least we're in it. We're in the conversation, and
give yourself a chance.
Give ourselves the chance. And, we started top 10, worked our way up, and come towards the end of the, we had 10 to go, 5 to go, something like that. We have a 2.5 second lead, and a caution comes out. And it's like, okay, here we go. We roll off that pit stop, maintain the lead, put Cole back out front, and like, okay, it's in your hands now. We did everything we could. And watching that final restart every day, it still gets me freaked out. Like, even I know what happened. It's
we got some insight. We got some insight from Matthew, and he said he couldn't even watch. That's how intense this moment was. Is he could not even watch Cole those last couple laps.
It was so brutal, and then to watch him get put in the middle. When the spotter told him, "Don't let the 7 get to your outside." Okay, he's outside. He's outside. And for us to fall back to 4th place and then just gun it and go around the bottom, and it hooked, and he just took off. And watching him go 3 and 4, and I thought the 7 was going to dive bomb us and get underneath us and work us up the track, and he just couldn't get there. And I was like, we just won the freaking championship, and it was. I lost it on pit road. I bawled my eyes out. It was just everything. I even talk about it now. I get
good, man. Show that emotion, man. That's what we love right there, man. That's beautiful.
It gets me every time. And just seeing my wife, my son watching it, because someone videotaped them watching the race and watching them lose it. And it's awesome.
Yeah, well, like you said prior, this is your livelihood. And after spending this time with you tonight here, while we get the chance to listen to everything that led up to that moment for you, and that is just the pinnacle. Now the good news is for you that with the 14 team, you're not done. You got a shot at another championship. And with the 00 team, I have the utmost confidence that you guys, obviously, well, we know you're locked into the postseason with the win at Pocono, but you have the utmost confidence that you could be there again, the Final Four, and you might be racing another one of your teammates in that championship race too. The way you guys have been unloading, the 98 team in Riley Herbst has been really fast too. So. It's exciting things, and I have to say, and this is hats off from the janitor to the drivers behind the wheel. You guys announced that you're closing as a team. I mean, not you personally. You got told you're closing as a team, but I mean, when Stewart-Haas announced that, there is zero quit in you guys, and that is a testament to the men and women that are working in these shops, and the drivers behind the wheel and everything in between. So my hat's off to you guys, because everybody could have folded and been a lame duck and just said it is what it is. But you guys said, no, we're going out swinging. And I mean, we know the Xfinity team, the teams, next year under Haas Factory team. And will we be seeing you there next year? Am I okay to ask that question, or?
Oh, no, it's fine. I will not be there. I did secure another job. I will be at Richard Childress Racing next year.
Okay.
And that be in the Xfinity or the Cup side?
Both.
Right on, man.
Right
That's
on,
what I'm talking about. Double duty.
Well, yeah, and congratulations to that. We now know that RCR is getting a good one. It's but still, the job's not done, and now knowing you and your mentality and your loyalty, especially saying you thought you'd retire at SHR, you go out with a bang, man, and just ride out these last 10 weeks and enjoy it. And who knows what comes out of it. That's the beauty of racing, man. It is truly an unknown. I mean, you guys bust your tails. Everybody busts their tails in this sport, and we don't know how these races are going to play out. And when Darlington rolled around and you guys were on top of the speed charts, and after we had just had the privilege of doing an interview with a crew member teammate of yours, Dakota Ratcliffe, I texted him. I said, you guys got a piece. Go get yourself one.
Yeah.
And now he says he has to do a podcast with us every week because he won a race.
Right.
These superstitions that you guys have
Oh,
there
yeah.
and the team. So, but yeah, man, I'm so excited for you guys and the opportunities on both ends of the Cup and the Xfinity to go out with a bang. I know we're cutting it here close on time, but I just want to extend. You are welcome back anytime, no matter what team you're with, my man. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you again for taking so much of your time to come chat with us here at Side Draft Media.
No, thank you so much for having me. I would love to come on and talk racing anytime, anywhere. So just give
Let's
me a
do it.
shout and I'll be here.
Hey,
I
by the
love
way,
this.
we're collecting Thanos's stones, man. We might have their whole pit crew on this thing before it's all said and done, man.
Heck yeah, it'd be perfect.
That
They
would
could
be
get
awesome.
us all together. That'd be a hell of a show.
Let's do it, man.
Okay, so here's the standing thing.
Okay.
You guys are going. So you talk about speaking it into existence. You're gonna win a championship, and then you guys are hopping on the podcast live from Victory Lane. That's just the only
Oh,
way we can do it, right?
absolutely.
We have to now.
As long as they got some beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And you know what? We will be virtually tracking them with you.
Absolutely. Before we do let you go, I know our
Yep.
time is getting close, Shayne, and thank you so much for every minute you've spent with us. But I like to ask you guys, because we talk about all the fun moments and the intent, the beautiful moments. Talk to us a little bit about the more intense moments, the more maybe scary moments that you've experienced on pit road, because we know everybody has them, and those can be, interesting stories too. Do you have a moment that stands out where, like, ooh, that was close, or ooh, somebody might have gotten hurt, but they're fine, obviously, now?
You've seen it. I mean, guys have been hit by cars. It happens. I've been close a few times. It typically happens when someone's pitted right in front of you and you're running right next to them, and you have to jump in between both cars, and you have to time it just right. You have to miss the first car, and then oh shit, here's our car.
You got to
right
miss your
next to you.
car.
You got to miss your car too, and so it's happened. I mean, knock on wood, I haven't had anything too serious, but I've had a lot of close calls. I mean, I felt cars rub the back of my heels when they leave their pit stall, and coming
Ooh.
into their pit stall, you can just feel the breeze. But you're so focused on your task, like you don't even think about that. Like I show my wife some of my videos, like, oh, look how close this was, and I'm laughing, and she's horrified. Like, what is wrong with you? You jump out in front of moving vehicles that are a minimum going 35 miles an hour.
Right. That's crazy.
3,400-pound stock car. It's just
That's
you don't
intense.
think
And
about it,
that's
you just do
Special
it.
breed.
that's
Special breed,
great.
man.
That's great insight. Feeling the actual wind off these cars. That's how close they are to making contact. 6 inches back, and you're possibly telling a
Yeah.
different story. So
I mean, when
that's
they drop the jack
insane.
on these cars and they take off, I mean, it's just all that horsepower to the ground instantly, and it knocks you back. The
Yeah,
pipes are right in your
absolutely.
face. It's right there.
Absolutely. That's great insight, man. Thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Again, Shayne, thank you
go
so
ahead.
much. We don't want to tie up much more of your evening, and we are really cutting it close on our time. You've been so awesome with us, and like we said, anytime. And I'm sure you have so many more of those racing stories you can tell. So we'll do it again, definitely.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on and giving me your time as well. I love being able to talk racing and give some insight to people who just don't know the behind the scenes of how really this stuff works. It's so different
Right.
from what you see on TV. It's a whole
Yeah.
village of people it takes to get these cars to the track.
And see, we're getting to the point now where we have favorite pit crew members more than we have favorite drivers, man. This whole thing is crazy. Like, we love it. So we're rooting
Yeah.
you guys on. I love having pit crew members that I cheer for on the TV now. It's awesome.
Well,
But
Absolutely.
yeah, man, from everybody at Side Draft Media, Ryan, our executive, Nathan, Shayne, thank you so much for your time. But we can't wait to have you back, bud. Good luck the
can't
rest of
wait
the
either.
season.
Absolutely.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Don, another one, man.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, we are
Sound like
lining these
DJ
guys up.
Khaled over here. Another one.
Just
It's like,
I'm running out of ways to express how excited I am hearing about these guys' stories and the joy that they share and the passion they have for this sport, because we all love it, but a lot of us don't know a lot of the stuff that these guys are talking about, and that's why we're bringing it to you guys. That's why we're doing what we're doing, so these guys can tell their stories, because it means everything to them. Absolutely awesome interview.
absolutely. And you just said beautifully. Just said it beautifully, man. This is their livelihood, and you know it's great that the NASCAR community has embraced these interviews as well. The feedback that we're starting to get in from you guys. So again, continue to like, comment, subscribe. Let us bring you more of this content because if this continues to go well, we'll do it weekly. And it's just been a whirlwind. And I'm so glad to befriend people like Shayne and his teammates that have come onto this show and other things that we have lined up on Side Draft Media. We're not done yet. So
Oh no,
we're
it's
just
just getting rolling, man.
we're just getting rolling, man. But
That's
thank
right.
you. And Don, again, always a pleasure to get to do this across from you, brother. I appreciate you.
Bud. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll catch you on the next one. Like Ryan said, y'all don't forget to throw some comments down there. Tell us what you think about Shayne and his experiences. We want to hear from you guys. We want to engage with you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff that you do. Ryan, until we get our next one, man, it's been a great evening. Again, thank you to Shayne and Haas for letting us borrow their guys. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Y'all have a great night.